What started as a Saturday morning coffee date turned into a podcast where we chat about things like faith, family, finances, and so much more.
In a world that is encouraging you to live your truth and to follow your heart, we want to encourage you to live devoted to the truth.
The Bible has a lot to say about how to live a victorious Christian life, and we want to share practical insight in how to apply those truths to your life as we endeavor to apply them to our own lives as well.
If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a review and share these episodes with your friends so that you can help them live this devoted life too. Welcome to another episode of This Devoted Life podcast. We just got back from a vacation to Florida. So
Sunny Florida.
if you're watching on YouTube, we may have a nice, Florida glow about us.
I think so, yeah. At least a not super stark white Michigan glow on us anymore.
Anyways, we started going to Florida every year, starting, 4 years ago. And we had been going to Fort Myers Beach, but then Hurricane Ian hit it and completely wiped it out. It was devastating. But this year, we kind of did a drive-through there on our way down to Marco Island, which is where we've been going the past 2 years. And we were so thankful to see how Fort Myers Beach is really starting to come back alive.
A lot of energy down there right now.
Yeah, the energy was back. A lot of the restaurants were open. Don't get me wrong, there was still a lot of places that were still working on rebuilding, kind of like Midway Island and like further down. But in the main hub, like, what do they call that right there?
Town Square. Times Square. Yep.
Yeah. They had really just come back alive. And it was fun to see because we were able to go back to a couple of our favorite restaurants there, which was Nervous Nellie's and the Dixie Fish Company.
Yep.
So if you ever go to Fort Myers Beach, those are two favorites. But the past 2 years, we've been down in Marco Island, which, dare I say it, that is actually probably our favorite spot now.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's hard to beat Marco. There's a lot of different things that we like about it. We are kind of a little bit of old souls, not anti-partiers by any stretch, but at the same time, it just fits our family, fits kind of who we are a lot better. The flow of traffic even on the island is better. And,
on a Fort Myers Beach, we would get stuck in traffic for an hour just to go a mile, and we were like, this is absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, we're used to Michigan traffic, which is not nearly that bad.
Yes.
And so, we definitely prefer the flow of Marco Island a little bit better. Yep. So anyways, we had a wonderful family vacation. The kids absolutely love Florida. When we got back last night, it was snowing and so cold here. And all of the kids were like, can we move back to Florida, please? So it was just wonderful to be able to have the opportunity to go and do that as a family. And we talked about this in a previous episode, but these times where we go away as family really do create core memories, and they're almost like markers for our year. And we're able to look back and remember, last year we did this, and last year we did that, and oh, hey, remember when we did this? So those things are so important to specifically our family culture. It's something that we enjoy doing. And I do think that having something unique that you do as a family, whether it's yearly or just a one-time thing, really can just create those memories that you talk about for a lifetime.
Yeah, so this is actually a little precursor of what I hopefully will get into a little bit later in this episode. But there's a book that I recently read that I'll get into that it talks about memory dividends. So what you just said about those experiences, those memories, so think back on any time in your life that you had an experience with a family member, your spouse, a friend, whatever, there will be certain moments in a day, even if it's only a couple times a year, where all of a sudden something will happen and you remember that experience, whether it was a year ago or 25 years ago or whatever. And that is, if you think about that as a memory dividend, so it just keeps paying you over and over and over. And sometimes those memories, those experiences, they might have only cost, they might have been free. You might have been just in your car going to the store, and all of a sudden that whatever it is in your day makes you think back on that. And so that's kind of how we've been living our lives,
Mhm.
the past, well, for a long time, but we've especially been trying to just make those memories.
Yeah.
And now we can already, just a few years into, the Florida thing per
Mhm.
se, we have so many memories. And it's like when we're down there, we're saying, hey, remember when we did this? Or remember when we did that? Throughout the year, we think back on those times.
Mhm.
And so if you think of, kind of that investment, even not financially, just that investment in an experience creates so many different
Yeah.
memory
We're
dividends.
investing our time and
Yeah.
resources into creating a memory. And then as we relive those memories or relive those moments through our memories, those
Yes.
are our dividends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
No,
pretty fun.
that is
Yeah.
fun.
Yep.
Well, I guess that's kind of a good segue into what we're going to talk about. So, James went a little bit rogue last episode, and he's talked a lot on family finances and just how, I guess, how would you describe that?
So, kind of like the psychology
Yeah.
behind the family finances. There are so many different resources that tell you or suggest to you exactly what to do and how to do it and things like that. But I think there's so many steps before that you need to take. That it's just it's
So
more
it
of the
was kind of like a
psychology behind it.
foundational thing
Hmm.
for finances for Christian families,
Yeah,
or just really any family,
yeah,
but there are a lot of them are godly principles
hmm,
that we have the foundation on. And so after that episode, we actually got a lot of really great feedback on it from several
yeah. So thank
people.
you for reaching out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
who said that that was one of their favorite episodes. And money is kind of a hard thing to talk about, I feel like, for
Yeah,
Christians sometimes, but this is the position that God has put us in. And so we want to share the experience that we have gained through our investments and our time and just
yep,
you as a businessman and whatnot. And so we thank you for that feedback. But we did get one very specific question. They asked for some practical tips for if you have a job where you are already you don't really have an opportunity for advancement in the near future,
hmm,
but you're looking to maybe take that next financial step. What are some things that we can do today to take those next financial steps? But first, let me tell you about a company that has enhanced our lives over the past few years, Earthly Wellness. I used to struggle with hormone imbalance.
I can vouch for that.
But then I started taking Hormone Balance by Earthly. And since then, not only have my mood swings been lighter, but my cycle has been more regular as well. For 10% off your first order, use the code DevotedMama10 at checkout using the link below or by going to earthly.com. That's EARTHLEY.com. Again, that coupon code is DevotedMama10.
Yeah, and I don't want this to sound like a cop out answer because I'm being very sincere and genuine in this. But kind of the short answer is it's very, very specific to you. And when I say you, I mean any of you hearing this, because we all have so many different backgrounds, so many different experiences, so many different credentials, things like that, that's usually my recommendation for the best place to start is to look at your own life and look at any hobby, any training that you have, like I said, a credential that you have, or just something you're really interested in. And think of how you might be able to monetize that. So, and let me actually back up just a quick second. So, I literally jotted these things down in the past 10 minutes. We got home a lot later last night from our Florida trip than originally planned, and we had church this morning, and we're sitting down to do this podcast right now. So, this is just stuff truly from my heart, from my mind, and hopefully it is of some benefit to you, but I want you to continue reaching out and maybe share some specific things. If you want some kind of personalized feedback, different things like that, I'll be happy to give it. I just, there are so many different ways to make money.
Mhm.
There are so many different ways for you to make money, and that maybe have little to zero interest for me. But if you give me a little bit of more information, detail, I might be able to go further down an avenue that maybe is more specific to you.
Mhm.
But so let me kind of go back to, I digress, go back to where I was. So if you have a certification, you can on nights or weekends, reach out to the people that you're around kind of in that area, or think of family members, think of friends, think of church members,
Mhm.
think of just different people around you who may be interested in maybe getting more of a quote unquote professional training from
Mhm.
you, or a professional perspective on what they're needing in their life. And people usually will be happy to pay for your services.
Mhm.
That's one thing that another thing that I jotted down here is, if people know your intent, your desires, things like that, they will often jump on the bandwagon gladly.
Mhm.
So if you start to, and I'll get into another avenue here in a minute, but if you just start talking openly
Mhm.
about what you're interested in, what your goal is, what your desires are, people will usually be intrigued, interested, and think, I know a person who was just talking to me about needing that physical therapy or needing that whatever. And, then all of a sudden you get a bunch of contacts and a bunch of clients,
Mhm.
and you can almost, turn that into your day job. But one thing in particular that this avenue takes is time. So, and I'm kind of skipping around in my notes here. And for those of you watching on YouTube or whatever video platform, you can see that I haven't even been looking at my notes yet. But just as things come into my mind, I keep talking about them. But there's kind of a lot of talk about passive income,
Mhm.
and people talk about it in social media, all of this, and as you know, it's very not passive.
Right.
But even in real estate, I think real estate's one of the biggest things that people talk about passive income. And I'm a firm believer, and I've probably said this on previous podcast episodes, but I'm a firm believer that there's really no passive income. There's just different forms, different levels of active when it comes to making money.
Mhm.
And I look at things rather than like run away from any get rich quick
Yeah.
scheme. There is, it's not true, or it's very unethical and immoral or whatever. But I highly suggest run away from get rich quick schemes and run toward get rich for sure methods. So real estate is another form, or just general investing, that maybe is a lot more passive, or can be a lot more passive,
Mhm.
but still relatively active. As
And it takes resources up front to
Yeah,
do
so
to real estate.
yep. So what I was going to say is basically you can have more of a passive form of income, but it also can take more resources. And the resource doesn't have to be money.
Mhm.
There are ways that you can invest in real estate with little to no money down. If you just literally Google that, there's books, whatever. Little to no money down, real estate investing. If you get the right partners, a lot of times people with more capital have less time.
So you could be the person doing the
Yep. So
time.
you could be the person, putting in the time and effort, getting the deals together, doing the property management, things like that. And you have a capital partner. There's also short term or hard money lending,
Mhm.
all different facets to investing in real estate, or just general investing. If there's something that you are dreaming and scheming up, but the thing is, kind of the punchline to all of this is kind of gravitate more toward what you're already interested in first. Because if you do something just out of the desire to make money, usually the first bump in the road, the first dip, you have to push through the dip in anything, and you'll bail if you are only in it for the money. Because if all of a sudden the money's not there, then you're like, well, this is dumb. I'm getting out.
Mhm.
But if it's kind of related to a desire, a hobby, a passion of yours, or something that you just have a lot of experience in, that's usually enough to
Mhm.
push through the dip and get to the point of like, wow, this is actually starting to get traction. This is actually starting to work.
Mhm.
And then that's when you can, go to the moon,
Yeah.
per se.
I want to interject something here because I think I have a really good example of this
Yeah.
because you were talking about how you should be passionate about whatever it is that you're working towards, but and you mentioned certifications or whatever, but you don't even need to have that. So
Hmm.
I have a friend who is very passionate about sourdough, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And she has been making sourdough
A
bread.
certified sourdough
Yeah.
maker.
She has been making sourdough bread for her family for 20 years.
Hmm.
And she recently just put it out there that, hey, I'm going to start making extra loaves of bread each week.
Hmm.
Would people be interested in buying this?
Sure.
And she's been selling out every week. And slowly she's been gaining more and more clients.
That's a perfect
And
example. Yeah.
that is a way that she has been adding income to their family just by doing something that she was already doing. She just kind of made it a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And it's been a blessing to their family,
Yeah.
So you don't even have to be necessarily certified in anything. You just have to be experienced in what you're offering. And I really liked when you said that you just need to talk to people about
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Because I love making sourdough bread, right?
Mhm.
And I talk to people about sourdough bread
sure.
quite
Yeah.
a bit. But I've never said, hey, would you like it if I started offering some for
Yeah.
sale?
Yeah.
So people might hear how passionate you are about something, but have no idea that you have a desire to even be selling it.
Yep.
So you do have to be proactive in telling people that,
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to try selling some of this. And then if they're like, well, I would buy it. Okay,
Yeah.
you have client number one,
Right. Yeah. Back in, 13 to 16, if you will, or 15, whatever, when I was getting into real estate, it was unbelievable to me how many people either owned real estate that I had no idea
Yeah.
they did, or were interested in
Mhm.
it, or had owned it, for investing purposes, obviously.
But it wasn't
And
until you started
yeah,
talking to
but
them.
when I talked to them, that's when all of those stories came out.
Mhm.
And so it just really taught me a huge life lesson that just anything that you're wanting to do, the more you talk about it, honestly, the more you learn and the more traction you get. But one big clarifying thing that I want, or a couple that I want to say real quickly, is we're specifically talking about side hustles.
Mhm.
And I never said, or if I did, please correct me, I never said find your passion. I
Correct.
said, look to things you are already passionate about. And again, we are talking about side hustles here. So
Mhm.
I am also a very firm believer that whether it's your day job, your business, or whatever, that the find your passion and just go after your passion is a really big myth. Honestly, the most successful, wealthy people I know, they kind of ended up being passionate about their business after they just kind of either fell into it or decided
They put
to
the work into
grind it
it.
out. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. So that daily grind and things like that, you don't have to be passionate, about making money or about how you are making money. It's just if you are looking for a side hustle to get into, that's usually a decent place to
Mhm.
start. So,
Yeah, I'm actually going to bring this back to maybe a spiritual
mhm.
application because sometimes like we don't feel passionate about our spiritual walk.
Yeah.
We kind of get very apathetic in our walk
Yep. That's
and it's
great.
like, I
Yep.
don't really want to read my Bible today. I don't really want to pray today. And then
Yep.
it's like, no, I'm going to because this is right.
Yep.
This is the step that I should be taking. And then you find that as you start doing it more consistently, more regularly, you start to gain that passion back because you're
Yeah.
investing your time where you should be investing your
Look
time.
at you bringing this back to the Bible.
Yeah.
I like it. Yes. No, it's so true. That's a great analogy. Just it's kind of like simple obedience,
Mhm.
right? Just take the next step. You don't have to have the whole thing figured out,
Mhm.
although I kind of like to have most of it figured out. But, it's just something about that, simple step in obedience or simple step toward a goal that you're working toward. And um, I don't know. I could talk for hours on this, and I don't want to just ramble on. But hopefully, those are a couple places that you can start or that whet your appetite. That it's just a way to monetize something that you are already
Mhm.
interested in, and the more you can take away the tie between your time and money, the better. So again, at the beginning, you will probably be putting in a lot of time and effort, but with the end goal of kind of having this system in place where
Mhm.
it's you're kind of making money as you sleep.
Mhm.
That's the kind of the best way I can put it.
Yeah.
And that mailbox money is nice, but you're not going to usually get rich quick on it. So just put in the time. The greatest obstacle to mastery is boredom.
Mhm.
Just kind of putting in the time and take the little wins as encouragement. You're not going to, be making, 5, 6, 7 figures overnight, but there's a chance that you could really, add some fun income. And if you can tie it to a goal, if you say, hey, I want to pay for our family vacation with this
Mhm.
year, maybe that's like the first fun goal. And then the whole time you're taking that or you're on that family vacation, you're like, yeah, I just created the income for
Mhm.
this. And I, had the success in my little side hustle to have fun as a family and start creating those memory dividends.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
that's awesome. So I guess that's a good segue into our next kind of part of this
Hmm.
podcast. So while we were in Florida, it was funny because I went down a week early. And when James came down to meet up with us, well, he came down for a weekend. It was kind of, I spent a week with my parents. He came down for a weekend during that time and then flew back home, worked for a week, and then flew back down for the second week of our
Yeah.
trip. But when he flew down for that first weekend, I was like, man, he's like almost all shook up. I don't really know what's going
Yeah.
on right now. So he had read a book that was called Die with Zero,
Yes,
and it really affected you. I mean, I
it
could just
did.
see that your mind was going 1,000 different directions. You had almost like this paradigm shift
Hmm.
to how you have been viewing
Yeah.
our family finances, your goals for your career even. And it was very interesting to see you kind of wrestle this out. And so I'll be curious kind of to hear what you have to say about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Honestly, it is, and I still am right now. So if I stumble over my words, it's out of some soul searching, some questioning of some things that I've had, in my mind and held as quote unquote truth or what's best for us and our family
Mhm.
for a long time. So, and just to kind of add to that one little bit, so while I was back here in Michigan, I there was a little, I kind of joined this little cornhole league at our church, or was kind of coerced into voluntold that I should be a part of it, and ended up having a lot of fun
I don't
doing
know if
it.
I've
But
ever heard the term voluntold before.
we use it at work every once in a while because someone volunteers for something that they have no interest in, but just they
They were
they know
told to
that they
volunteer.
really need to do it.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
funny.
So at any rate, I was talking with Brad actually, and he literally texted me afterwards, and he is like, "Man, you were like at a loss of words talking
I
about
like
this."
I said,
So
you were shook up. That was the only way I knew how to put it. I could
yeah.
just tell that something inside of you is like, I don't know what's going on, but I think you were excited about it, but you didn't know how to feel about being excited about it,
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where there's this dichotomy or these polarizing statements.
Mhm.
And so it's like I probably am going to end up somewhere in the middle,
Yeah.
but I love it when it's people, books, podcasts, things really challenge my mind. And even
Mhm.
if I come back to where I was originally thinking or my
Mhm.
place of I guess just living.
Mhm.
I love thinking about it and having
Mhm.
it challenged. So this is good. And I'll be also honest. I made a lot of all of these notes while I was reading the book. So
Mhm.
and again, I didn't go back over them last night or this morning. So I'm going to read them as I talk and then kind of elaborate as needed. So again, the name of the book is Die with Zero. And the first note here that I have is choose your experiences deliberately rather than living life on autopilot. And it's a very simple statement, and
Mhm.
it's one that I've probably even said a different version of, but it was just a good reminder. So
Mhm.
that was a good reminder, and that check in with yourself. So even if you have goals and you look at them regularly, if you just have like a time and a place, honestly, weekly is probably too often, but quarterly is probably getting too long. So
Mhm.
somewhere between monthly and quarterly, just rethink about them and just make sure you're on the right path because
Mhm.
those are things that, as a person and as a couple and as a family, you just want to make sure that you're not wasting time.
Mhm.
You know,
It's kind of like know your why, have your family vision,
mhm.
and you kind of have to reassess, are we still on the path that we want to be for what our why is, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. In one of the main reasons in the book of why to do that is, not live on autopilot is our ability to enjoy experiences changes dramatically throughout our life. So
Mm.
again, just bookend things. You're born and you die, right?
Yeah.
And
You've got all this
and
time in between.
yeah, there you have all this time in between, and fortunately, I've had 39 years in between. I'm not promised tomorrow, but the likelihood of me living, for let's say 4 to 6 more decades is real, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things in the book, and if I kind of come back across it in my notes, I'll maybe skip over it. But one of the things in the book is to go to a life expectancy calculator online. There's different ones. So just research them. And if you read the book, he gives some specific things. I don't have them right in front of me, but and I might if I'll say them later if I do. But you do a life expectancy calculator, and it might scare you into making some big changes in your health and in your lifestyle, or you might be pleasantly surprised. So,
And obviously, those are just an estimate, and we can't guarantee any of those numbers, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
obviously, but they're pretty accurate,
Yeah.
barring any accident,
Right.
But if your parent died of cancer, then there's a chance, there's a higher likelihood
Mhm.
that you could die a little younger than what some people whose parents didn't
Yeah.
die from cancer, things like
Yeah.
that.
There's different
So
markers.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's these. I think I can't remember the term, but basically the insurance industry
Okay.
has millions and millions and millions of case studies, but potentially billions at this point. They're pretty accurate,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
So what
you
was yours?
mine it the I ran it twice.
Okay.
I kind of did some maybe favorable lifestyle answers
Mhm.
in the questionnaire, and it spit out my life expectancy is 100.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've always said I wanted to go before you,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So you're stuck with me
all
for
right.
yeah, what, 62 years? Or 61, I guess, at this point. But at any rate, I also answered the questionnaire again with maybe like a little less optimistic answers, but still representative of my lifestyle and fitness level and things like that. And it said 99.
Oh,
So it
I
wasn't.
really am stuck with you,
Yeah,
barring
you
any
are.
accidents.
Yeah. So we'll just, round to 60, I guess. But
Obviously, only God knows when we're gonna
yeah.
pass, but
So Lord willing, I'll have a lot of years.
yeah.
But what the kind of the punchline of this part of it is that the last 20 years, once I hit 80, you
Y
just.
you're not gonna be going and hiking, like, really big mountains
Yeah,
and
and
stuff.
and man, I sure will try if I
Yeah.
can. But just it in life, age does things to your body that
Mhm.
no one can overcome.
Right.
And some people in their 40s might say, "Man, I feel healthier than I'm in my 20s." Well, that just mostly means that you were really unhealthy in your 20s.
Right.
Honestly, because or that you're overly healthy now
Mhm.
and overly fit, but there are things that you cannot do at 40 or do as well or with the intensity that you could do at age 20.
Right.
It's just biology, I guess.
Yeah.
So the point is to choose your experiences deliberately rather than living life on autopilot, and that your ability to enjoy experiences changes considerably throughout
Mhm.
your life. So now that's setting up the framework for a lot of the actionable items that he
Mhm.
talked about in this book. So one of the first things is basically you need to time bucket your life and experiences. So he recommended literally today sit down and break the rest of your do that life expectancy calculator and break down the rest of your life into, I think he even said 5-year increments. And like I told you the other day, I feel like the ages of like 40 to 60 are
Mhm.
probably, and this is just me talking, he didn't say this, but like I feel like the 5 years kind of matter more depending on the difficulty of your desires. So like,
Right.
for example, I think it would be really cool to go sheep hunting
Mhm.
in the mountains. I mean, it's a very intense activity. And I think it would kind of matter if you did that at 43 versus 48
Yeah.
even, so it's like the 5 years might matter more for, the next 20-ish
Mhm.
years for me. So, but time bucket, so go 5 years at a time and literally write down maybe the bucket list or the things that you think would be things that you want to do in your life during that time in your life.
Mhm.
And so that's about as simple as I can put it, and again, he elaborates on it a lot more. And just by the way, I'll interject here. I don't really hardly know the author of the book. Yeah, I think he probably lives a different lifestyle than I do for
Mhm.
sure, and maybe I would endorse. So this isn't like I'm saying
This isn't
this is
endorsing
the way.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just it really made me think.
Mhm.
And again, I think about this stuff a lot, so I think that's why it was so polarizing to me. Where I'm like, man, I don't think I've ever had the thought that
Mhm.
I should die with
Yeah.
$0, and that's what I'm building towards here.
Right.
But
Well, so
yeah,
many people, they work towards retirement, and then
yeah,
they're like, we're going to do all of this stuff after retirement. But what you're saying, if I'm understanding correctly, is just physically, we aren't able to do as much if you retire at 60, 70, whenever
hmm
you're able to retire. Physically, you might not be able to do the things that you want to do like you would today.
yes,
Yeah, so you
no
kind of need to
question.
plan out those buckets of time of what can I do, when can I do it, and how can I work towards
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and so again. I'll kind of just skip around a little bit in my notes here because I don't know what I'm about to read in my notes. But what you just said, brought a few things into my mind. So when if you die with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of dollars left, then in theory, you gave up or worked in the healthy years of your life
Mhm.
to basically just leave that money to whatever your will says.
Mhm.
And he has some pretty strong statements about you know, yeah, you can create a will, but once you're dead, you really don't have any direct impact of where your money goes,
Yeah.
or at least how it's being used. So, I guess I'll say this right now. He recommends. So, and again, I'm recalling this from memory, so I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's very good stuff. So, most people get an inheritance. I think he said at the age of like 63
Okay.
was let's just say 60. At the age of 60, in theory, people are dying at 80 or early 80s and they have kids or did have kids, around the age of 20. So if you just think about it logically, it makes
If
sense.
you live to 100, our kids aren't getting it until their 80s.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, what the kind of the punchline is the inheritance that
Mhm.
you're leaving your kids, or the inheritance that pretty much everyone is getting nowadays, the baby boomers
Mhm.
really, are getting. They don't you don't need money at age 60 like you do at age 30.
Yeah.
And again, you could argue obviously there are outliers all the time. But what the point is that through a bunch of different studies and stuff, they kind of came up with the best time the best age for your children to receive money is between the age of 26 and 35.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, And again, I'm just telling you what the book said, and like
Yeah.
it really got my wheels spinning. And so it's like, okay, should we, instead of just like working, really hard and really diligently and amassing, whatever level of wealth you're desiring, to then spend some of it
Mhm.
in retirement, hopefully, right? I
Right.
mean, like you said, we're not promised tomorrow.
Mhm.
Um, and then your kids don't get it until they don't need it.
Right.
So it's like, well, maybe we should be thinking that when our kids, you can do the math, right? Your
Mhm.
kids are going to be 30, let's just say for a round number, this year, this year, this year, and this year, because we have 4 kids. Then it's like, okay, maybe that should be our goal.
Mhm.
Like maybe we should have a fund set up for our kids to receive this money
Mhm.
at X age.
Mhm.
And then it's like you can like help influence, or if you don't want to help influence how they spend it or whatever, like you have so much more control over that. And obviously you talk to a financial advisor and tax planning, estate tax planning strategist and things like that. There are probably optimum and less optimal ways of giving your money away, but it was a very
Mhm.
interesting thought.
Well, and actually bringing it back to what we were just talking about with the side hustles,
Yeah.
you could be the investor that you were talking about in the
Yes.
side hustles for your kids. Like, who else would be better to invest in than your own
Yeah,
children?
no,
And
it's great.
and if you are teaching them to be entrepreneurial as kids,
Yep.
imagine what they're going to be like when they're 30.
Yeah.
And if they know that they can be like, "Hey, mom and dad, like I have this awesome business idea. I want to go for it. I
Yeah.
just don't have the means right now." You can be like, "Hey, let's make this, a business deal together,
Yeah.
and you could do
Yeah.
that."
How fantastic would it be to be able to be the seed money for your child's endeavor? And again, it's a gift.
Mhm.
Like if they lose it, don't worry about it. Like don't have that like
You don't want to hold it over your
yeah,
child like, "Hey, this
exactly.
was my money you're
Right.
losing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is a gift. And
Yeah.
you could I mean think of the memory dividends you would get out of doing something like that,
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was very good and a very thought provoking.
Mhm.
And if you let's say you don't have children or you don't want to give it to your children. I don't know. You want to
Well,
give
obviously,
it
if our
to
children were not living correctly, we would not be wanting
yeah,
to invest in their
exactly.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so your church, your community, your local rescue mission, your whatever, charity that you want to give it to, they always, it's always better for them to get your money today.
Yeah.
It just is. Like some charities, they will bring in more money than they give out or whatever. But like, let them make that decision. And maybe you don't, maybe some of them don't spend their money as wisely as you think they should. So then don't give to them,
Mhm.
but you just have so many more choices and options while you're living
Mhm.
in how to give your money away.
Mhm.
So it's like whatever charity you write in your will right now, by the time you're dead, they might not even be around. So you got to
Mhm.
update it, and there's just so many different things. So again, it was just very thought provoking
Yeah.
of how to give your money away.
And then too, I was just going to say with us having just gotten back from a vacation, it's like if you can afford to do it, take that
Yeah.
vacation because like as we were coming home, I always get kind of sad at the end of our
Yeah.
Florida trips
Yep.
because I know that next year, if Lord willing, we're able to go again, our
Mhm.
children are not going to be the same age. They're not going to be the same that they are today.
Yep.
And those times, it's like we need to invest in today to create those memories because we don't know what next year is going to hold, and each year that goes by is one less year that we have with our kids. And so,
Yeah.
like making that investment,
Yep.
into that family vacation that your family's going to talk about a lot
Yes.
is a valuable investment.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might be thinking right now, you're like, well, how in the world would I know how much I need? And it just seems very kind of like hazardous to be
Right.
giving your money
Because you don't want to
away.
spend all your money right now.
And
You still
right.
do have to be invested
Yeah.
in the
So
future.
again, I do want to say the premise of this book was not just blindly,
Don't just spend
like
every penny.
like don't work, go play, go make all the kinds of memories and give all your money away. Like that, it was actually kind of the opposite. It was like be very tactical and plan very thoroughly
Mhm.
to really just squeeze the most efficiency out of life
Mhm.
and out of your money. And so he talks about the survival threshold, and that basically it's point 0.7 times 1 year's expenses times your years left to live. And again, there's so many variables within those variables,
Yeah.
but it is a tangible thing you can do. Whether you think you're going to need 40 grand a year, 100 grand a year, a million, 10, I don't know what your lifestyle is, but like however much you think that you're going to need. And again, he really breaks it down, and there's a lot of different, like once you have this little,
Like a
um
mind exercise.
mind exercise. Yeah, once you start dialing in on this, like really, there all the resources are there. I mean, you can kind of make up your own survival threshold. You
Mhm.
don't have to use exactly what he does, but it's just it was very energizing to think about the different possibilities. And so, let's just say you are gonna live to 99 or 100, and you need 50 grand a year to live each year, and then you do point 0.7 times that, and that's your survival threshold.
Mhm.
And that is the amount of money you need to retire.
Mhm.
And you know that I kind of have mixed feelings on even retirement, because I feel like there's just kind of like a next endeavor.
Yeah.
Like there's you might retire from your W-2 job, but then you move on
It's
to
more
the
of a
next thing.
pivot.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a little transition in your life, and it's something that you can you just have fun with,
Mhm.
and be energized by. So net worth peak occurs sometime between 45 and 60 in his little analogy here. In a lot of people, they kind of almost have their net worth peak at like when they die, or a few years before they
Mhm.
die, because it at some point your money is making, your investments or whatever are making more money than you're able to physically spend, because it's hard to even get out of the chair, let alone
Right.
go spend, 150 grand a year, or, $1 million a year,
Mhm.
right? You have to like physically go do something, unless you want to just, like blow your money. And again, at that point, it's like you should have given your money away 40 years
Right.
before, so like all these things start making
Mhm.
sense, as you go read through the book. Um, and again, there's not necessarily an age to retire, but rather a time to start spending more than you earn.
Mhm.
And even that was like, I don't know if that sounds like a scary thought, right?
Right.
Like if you're,
We've always been living under our means in
yes,
order to save.
or
So
within
like,
our
or
means,
within.
like I
Yeah.
said before, a few weeks ago in that podcast, like live within our means, which for us, we've set up our lives where living within our means is actually
We
spending.
spend less than
Yeah,
what you make.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and we invest a pretty high percentage of my income, and so it's like all of a sudden now at this point, this pivot point,
Mhm.
now it's like, no, we really need, quote unquote,
To
air
spend it.
quotes, need to spend more than we're making. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, to do that prior to the age of even 65 or 70, let alone, later than that, like I would have never
Mhm.
probably thought about that,
Yeah.
and so you have this tipping point. Um,
I love that we can like record this in video, because the people who are watching you are probably like, man, he's super excited
yeah.
about this. Just the expressions on your face
Well,
and the
thanks.
passion
Yeah.
about it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
it really is. There's a lot of things in life that I get like this about. It's not just money, but the past couple episodes, have been more about finances. And yeah, it is. It's just,
Mhm.
yeah, it's very energizing.
Yeah. We are starting to get a little long in this episode. So I'm going to ask you just kind of one last question, maybe to wrap it up for now.
Okay.
But what are the ways that he would suggest to die with zero? Like, what are some of the things to do to quote unquote spend your money or give it away that he maybe, or that you would suggest?
Yeah, he basically to find out your, your longevity,
Hmm.
and then bucket, your life into these experiences and time frames, and then find out your survival threshold, calculate that out,
Hmm.
and then literally just start going after those specific goals,
Hmm.
whether it's, only work your job for X amount of years, or
Like
You-
retire
yeah,
early
or retire
or
early
okay.
and spend more time doing those things.
Mhm.
And again, giving your money away,
Mhm.
because if all of a sudden you do the math and it's like, well, I could retire today, but I want to give a lot of money away.
Mhm.
So, it's like over the next 10 years, give your money away,
Yeah.
like keep working, but give your money away.
Yeah.
And he also talked about rebucketing your life every 5 to 10
Like
years.
reevaluating.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, like that's where I was talking about, I mean, he talks about, at a minimum, every 5 to 10 years, because, again, health changes,
Mhm.
life changes, you know,
Life throws you
yes,
curveballs. Yeah. Like your
who,
mom getting rheumatoid arthritis
yeah,
really changed a lot of the things that your parents did, in
exactly.
their life.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. So, yeah. And then kind of like the punchline of the whole book is it's impossible to die with zero, but if you try to achieve that worthy goal, you will have succeeded at maximizing your life's potential.
Okay.
In again, there's a whole spiritual uh just soul searching part of this that we
Mhm.
could add to it. He's specifically I mean he seems very humanistic in his writing and
Yeah.
things like that. But if you just look at the from a financial standpoint, you will truly have maximized
Mhm.
your life's potential from a financial point of view. And I did, and I kind of added, evidently, in notes to myself. I spiritualized it a little bit. I said, similar to living like Jesus, as Christians,
Mhm.
we want to be like Christ. We want to be Christ-like, right?
Yeah.
And we know it's an impossible goal.
Yeah.
We know that we can't achieve that, but even though we'll fall far, far short,
Mhm.
it's like if that truly is our goal, we'll have succeeded at a lot of very
Mhm.
good value added things to ourselves and for eternity,
Mhm.
right? So like,
Yeah, I mean, you saying that your life expectancy, in the calculator was 100, that is still what the Bible refers to as a vapor. That
yes,
still is just a drop in the bucket as
yeah,
far as
that
the
James was pretty
time
wise,
goes.
wasn't
Yes,
he?
he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so life is a
Yeah.
vapor. It is very short. How can we redeem the time today?
Yes.
And, it's not just our finances, but it's our time and how can we live that to the fullest?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, like I kind of just the last little punchline of, and again, this was my note to myself. So I guess you guys get it all for free, but like the ending of living like Jesus and how that's impossible. But in the endeavor to do that, we will likely be much more kind, loving,
Mhm.
wise, patient, all of those things.
Yeah.
And those are things that I need to work on. So that's probably
Mhm.
why I wrote them down. But, just it's a worthy cause and it's a
Yeah.
worthy goal. And, again, from just kind of a human and financial standpoint, honestly, dying with zero seems like somewhat of a worthy goal. And
Well, we can't take it with us.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So, and this is his comment here because we obviously know life is far, far, far more than this. But he says the business of life is acquiring memories, and honestly, in the right perspective. So, it's not the most important thing, but from a business and life standpoint, acquiring memories and getting those dividends from the memories is, I think a pretty worthy
Mhm.
aspiration.
And when you couple that with a Christian walk, those memories actually are, impacting other people
Yeah.
for Christ,
Oh,
depending on
exactly.
how you're spending your finances, how you're
Yeah.
spending your time, the time that we're investing into our family and the memories that we're making with them. I mean, we're not just going and doing fun things. We're walking and talking and living out
Yeah.
Christ's example in front of our children. And when we're doing that in a fun way and
Mhm.
we're showing them that we can live an excited and victorious and fun Christian life,
Yep.
we are actually giving them something that goes, wow, being a Christian really is amazing. Like, look at the joy my parents have. Look how much
Yeah.
fun they can
Oh,
have,
yeah.
and
Yep. Well,
yeah.
and, I mean, the other day, literally on our vacation, I had breakfast with I mean, a real estate guy
Yeah.
down in Florida, like, and it's
We all
just,
slept in while you went and had
yeah.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a guy that I ran into, a year and a half ago or whatever. And it's like we talked about all kinds of stuff. We talked about business, we
Mhm.
talked about real estate. But we talked about, he is a fellow believer,
Mhm.
and we talked about, his involvement in his church and what we do in our church. And, so those are just because they're creating memories for our family and we're on this vacation doesn't mean it's not also leaving a legacy on here on earth
Mhm.
that impacts eternity, right?
Exactly.
So it's very fulfilling,
Yeah.
spiritually, financially, even physically. So
Yeah.
because, like you said, I have a lot of energy and passion for this. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I think that's a wrap. Again, even though we did go a little long, it's definitely only scratching the surface. So
Mhm.
hopefully, I don't know. I would recommend it's a good read,
Mhm.
even if it just confirms that you don't want to do that or
Yeah.
whatever. It's a very good fodder for
Yeah.
the mind.
And definitely give us feedback like you
Yeah.
did last episode to where we have something to go off of because we want to be able to give you valuable content, something that's going to help impact
Yeah.
you and help you to continue in your walk with the Lord and in this
Yeah.
case, your finances and whatnot. So continue to give us that feedback.
Yeah, we can
It's
sit here and
awesome.
talk about stuff that interests us, and you might not care anything about it, and
Right.
then I guess it would still be a fun conversation. But we want to do this in a way that helps you.
All right. Well, until next time, we want to encourage you to seek God, love your spouse, hug your kids, and stay devoted. Thank you for tuning in to this Devoted Life podcast with James and Shanda. We appreciate your support in sharing biblical, uplifting truths with the world. If you found value in this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us to improve the show, and we'd love to hear from you. Be sure to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how to live a life devoted to God and family, head over to thisdevotedlife.com. You can also follow me, Shanda, on Instagram at devoted_motherhood. Thank you again for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time on This Devoted Life podcast.